Hello, everybody. Greetings from Alap. So we're just going to be waiting for a few minutes until a few people join us on the live. And after that, we'll start off with Dance in the Now, Episode 1, The Essentiality of Art with Roja Khat. Okay, I think we have a few people who've already joined us, so we can start off. Again, hello everyone, and greetings from Alap. Thank you all so much for joining us today for a very thoughtful and, in a sense, necessary conversation that we have planned out. So, uh, for the past 4 months, we've been trapped and locked indoors without having the freedom and liberty to walk out, go shopping, go outside to eat, watch a performance, be on stage, just enjoy being, right? So, and we've all been battling it in different ways. And in a sense, all of us have started, adapting and adjusting to the new normal. But there's still so much of uncertainty that is there for us to think of how we have to move forward, not just with different things are going out, but also life. Schools might not open until the end of this year. No social gatherings will be allowed, and even if, let's pray that corona is going to go away soon, we'll still have that sense of fear of what if, right? So with all of these questions, um, how does the world of arts deal with this? Of course, with time, initially in March, all of us were posed with a very big question mark, because all that we've seen of dance is on stage in an auditorium. We love to dress up, we love to watch a performance with the live orchestra and the lighting and the sound, but everything had to just come to a halt. So, what is the dynamic now? Like right now, it's 4 months into lockdown and a pandemic, but we're still kind of recalibrating everything that we've been doing for so many years now. So, with this question in mind, we ideated a series, Dance in the Now, that will feature a lot of conversations with different people in the world of arts who carry different roles and responsibilities as artists, as teachers, as facilitators, and so many other things. And we were thinking of who to start this series with. And the first organization and association that came to our heads was Abhay, which is the Association of Bharatanatyam Artists of India. Abhay has been one of the pioneering organizations that has, we can say, united the fraternity of Bharatanatyam from all over the world. It started with one city, it grew to a state, to a country, and now people from all over the world know what Abhay is and recognize the kind of work that Abhay has been doing. So with such a primordial role in the world of arts and Bharatanatyam especially, we reached out to Roja Kannan, who is the president of Abhay, to have actually to ask her all the questions that we had in mind. And this time, for I think 4 months, everyone's seen Alap with just two speakers. So we wanted to open the stage out to a lot of other people who definitely would have a lot of questions as artists or even as Rasikas, because a Rasika's favorite thing to do is watch their favorite performer on stage. So we opened out the conversation to three other young dancers from one from Hyderabad, one from Ahmedabad, and we also have a dancer from London. Before I go ahead and we start with the conversation, I'd like to formally introduce Roja ma'am. So, Kalaimamani Roja Kannan is a leading Bharatanatyam exponent from Chennai, India, who has trained under illustrious gurus like Padma Shri Adyar K. Lakshman and Padma Bhushan Kalanidhi Narayan. Hailing from the family of the renowned musician Palgad Sri Rama Bhagavatar, she grew up in an atmosphere of music and dance, and naturally, she started her training in dance and music at a very young age. In the last 4 decades, Roja Kannan has been hailed as a pristine performer with rich experience and expertise. Roja Kannan founded Bharata Natyalaya Academy of Dance and Music in 1987 with the sole aim to train students in the nuances of the arts. The center strives to uphold the genuine values of the unique South Indian dance form, Bharatanatyam. Ruja Kannan has expressed her innate urge to serve the community of artists, and in her capacity as the president of Abhay, Association of Bharatanatyam Artists of India, she continues to work for the same cause of the betterment of not art but also its artists. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this with us. And we welcome you to the first episode of Dance in the Now.
Thank you.
I'd also like to introduce our three dancers who are going to be part of the interviewing team. We start off with G. Nikita from Hyderabad. She is a final year BTech student and an Andhra artist who is also trained in Bharatanatyam and Pedini Natyam, both of which are very traditional folk forms in the Telugu region. And she is currently under the guidance of Pedini Srinivasa Rao, who is the disciple of late Professor Nataraj Ramakrishna Garu. Khushi Langalia from Ahmedabad is a Bharatanatyam dancer with 12 years of training in the art under Ayushi Joshi. She completed her Visharad in Bharatanatyam from the Akhil Bharatiya Gandharva Mahavidyalaya, Mandal. She is currently pursuing an undergraduate course in Bharatanatyam while preparing to be a chartered accountant. Laksika Ellen is an aspiring Bharatanatyam dancer based in London, UK, having undertaken tutelage from Srimati Raji Mohanaraj, who is also a disciple of Guru Adyar K. Lakshmanan. And with further training in Chennai under various gurus, she is currently she's trying to establish her institution to spread her love and passion for Bharatanatyam by extending the values of this art form to the forthcoming generations. We thank all of them so much for readily writing to us and expressing their various concerns that they wanted to talk about in this session. We hope you all enjoyed, and over to our speakers for today.
Thank you, Subiksha, for that very detailed introduction. And thank you, Rojaji, really so kind of you to agree to come and, talk to us about what is a very, very important topic, really. And, I'm just going to set the premise for this discussion. And, in an article on June 14th, the Sunday Times revealed the results of a commission survey on people's perceptions of essential jobs within the context of the pandemic. Topping the list of non-essential jobs was that of an artist. That came as a shocker, not only to artists, but also to us. Because topping the number 3 on that list was social media managers and publicists. So it was like, it was like not only were artists affected, all of us who work in the space of the arts was also, it was a huge blow for all of us. That survey also had the world of the arts and artists pushing back with deep insights and posts that truly reinforce the power and the potential of arts and artists. I read this beautiful piece in The Independent, which was covered by a journalist, where he wrote, and I'm just going to read out what he'd written. He says there's a tendency to think of theaters, art galleries, and concert halls as optional luxuries in the wider struggle of life. Frivolous add-ons that society can afford to enjoy once they have paid for the really important things like health, education, infrastructure, defense. In fact, the arts and culture performs, he says, a vital function in our society, just as essential as any of the so-called essential services we've been hearing so much about. Indeed, and that's so true, while the past 4 months have left us feeling immensely proud of our healthcare professionals who have risked in some cases their lives to keep the system going, this period has equally demonstrated the absolute centrality of the arts to the mental and physical health of the nation, right? And on this sort of, having said this context, Rojaka, I'm going to ask you firstly about, what as an artist, both as a dancer and as the president of Abhay, what is your everyday state of mind? What has your everyday state of mind been like for the last 4 or 5 months?
Namaskaram. Thank you for having me on this very essential and necessary topic of these days, where we come up with such contrasting opinions about why the arts, what is the role of the artist, why should anyone even have something to do with dance and music at a time when there are people who are losing lives because of this pandemic. But at this point of time, a very interesting WhatsApp status of one of my very young students come to my mind. She has written this, the earth without art is just A, EARTH. So without ART in between, it's just
Wow.
A, so
Right.
it's that shows, as a young 15, 16-year-old, how much this situation that is currently facing everyone has affected her, So
Right.
Where is the question of humanity surviving without the arts? I cannot imagine a situation where there is no music, no dance, no painting, no sculpture. So the whole gamut of all this, permeates our being day in and day out. So the first, the minute this struck us, in March, when the lockdown was first introduced, it was a shocker for most of us artists. It was a shocker because we had just then completed our tour of Natyanjali for Shivaratri. Just the previous weekend, we had all danced happily in all the temples down south and come back with our students, had a wonderful time visiting the temples and all that. And then after just a week, everything has come to a standstill. And there are no one coming to my dance classes, nothing is happening. I'm just sitting at home and doing all the daily chores and nothing to look forward to, So that was a point at which where, I started reflecting, why is the humanity going through this? What has happened? Is it our own doing? Is it something that we have brought it upon ourselves? So all these myriad questions coming into my mind and thinking about it. And then I just wanted to be connected with the art in some form or the other. So I just brought all my books from my cupboard, all my books where I have written about all the items that I have learned, right from my very young days, just brought it, kept it around me, sat in the middle and just kept looking at it, which gave me a sort of a connect with what I've been doing all my life. It's almost 4.5 decades, since I've been into this. And a day without going to my dance class, without singing or without taking the Adavu class, I cannot imagine, except the brief periods of time when I used to visit my children abroad. All the other times I used to spend only in my dance classes. You know, that was the connection, that was the bond that I had grown up with. So then 1 week passed, 2 weeks passed, the first lockdown, the second lockdown, and then how are we going to deal with it? I started thinking about it. That is when, as the president of Abhay, I started getting calls from artists, you know, who were confused as to what is happening. Will they ever be able to go out? Will they ever be able to touch that instrument again? Will they ever be able to play again on the stage? Will they ever see an audience live? You know, those sort of queries I started getting. And then the first couple of months, many of them were able to manage. But in the third month and the fourth month, the situation did not improve at all. That is when every single artist started feeling the pinch. So what struck us at Abhay and the committee was, we immediately had a meeting and decided that we should start something to help these artists out. You know, we are a very privileged few who can afford to not get the fees coming in every month or not perform. Even if you perform, even if you don't get paid, we are a very privileged few, maybe 1 or 2% of the artist population who can afford to be in that state. But the majority, the 98% of the population of artists cannot afford to go through life like this. Then there were many who were only surviving on performances, but there were few who were surviving on performances and tuitions. So those could manage somehow or the other. And there were many in most interior Tamil Nadu and rural places who were artists, but who did not have an access even to a smartphone. So how do you expect them to be connected with their students unless they come live to the class or do something online? You know, it's unheard of. And remote villages and small towns in Kerala, the Wi-Fi is so bad, is so, you know, it is impossible for them to have any connectivity. So leave alone taking classes. So this is when we started thinking. And I should thank at this point my previous president, Srimati Chitra Visweswaran, who started off this initiative when the floods affected Chennai. In 2015, she was a president, Srimati Chitra Visweswaran, the president. She was one who started an initiative wherein we collected funds, donations from the general public and helped artists to get back their, get a hold of their lives. And many of them had lost houses, many of them had lost their instruments, their books.
Correct, yeah.
It was a very terrible situation when in 2015, the flood suddenly
remember
happened into the city. Yeah. So she was instrumental, you know, in
like a foundation was laid, right, to some extent.
So in 2015, almost 100 artists were helped at that point of time, you know, and so that was one of the biggest inspirations for us to start doing it. And the other situation when Abhay pitched in was at the 2018 floods in Kerala. When whole families of artists were wiped out, completely wiped out. So again, we pitched in and we could resurrect the lives of many artists in Kerala. So with all these in the background and with constant guidance from our advisory committee, all our previous presidents, the who's who of Bharatanatyam have been our previous presidents, and all of them are still in the advisory committee. So every little thing, every little step that we take, we seek their advice and they guide us. And with their full support and encouragement and blessings, we started this Artists for Artists initiative. And right from day one, we launched it on April 14th, Tamil New Year's Day. And right from day one, it started as a small trickle. So we did not expect it to reach this proportion as far as donations were concerned, because we were only tapping the general public. unfortunately or fortunately, we couldn't get through to the government because the governments themselves were so full of their own huge issues as far as the health of the country was concerned. So they were too much, trying to tackle the pandemic, tackle the spread. So they did not have the time or the infrastructure to think about artists. And as you said, in the hierarchy of essentials, we come somewhere in the end. And unfortunately or fortunately, we have to deal with it, So we thought we have to be our own, masters at this point of time. So we just tapped our fellow artists and the general public. And with just one video that we managed to do from our own homes and put it together with our very, very less technical skills. So we could reach out. And then slowly every week from April 14th onwards, every week we had a round of disbursement. So it started that way, and till date we have finished 12 rounds of disbursements to a number of artists who've been helped. Almost 275 artists we have reached out to, and covering all genres of arts. There is no distinction, or we never see whether they are classical or whether they are folk or whether they are tribal or whether they are allied, personal, technical, makeup men, lighting person, stage decorators, costume tailors, makeup ladies, they were hairdressers, so many. So we covered everybody, including street theaters and puppeteers and soothsayers, Boom Boom Art community. There are about 200 families of Boom Boom Art community in Vellore, So we, through Sangeeta Ishwaran, who runs this Winged Dancers initiative, through her, we reached out to them. We could help a little bit of those families. So this is the way in which we have been doing it, and the work is still going on. And it's just either a call to any of us or an email to Abhay Chennai, and we are there. We call them back, we talk to them, and we console them. We tell them we are there for you. This emotional.
Ma'am. So the thing is that I wanted to ask you at this point that the pinch, you use this word pinch. The pinch is not merely financial, right? There are a whole bunch of people who are feeling the pinch beyond the financial and the physical, so to speak. So I want to firstly ask you about, before we get into that aspect of how Abhay has tackled the emotional well-being of the artist, I want to ask you personally, like you play these two roles. Do you see them as one? One is of a dancer, so you have your own sort of, you have to keep self-motivating. That's one. But the other is a more administrative sort of role. I'm curious, how do these two roles kind of come together, or do they remain to be an administrator of a dance organization? I suppose it's crucial that you're a dancer and you feel so passionately about it. So how have you been able to wear these two hats during this pandemic, and how have you personally coped and helped Abhay cope therefore?
Yes. So I won't say I have not been emotionally affected because of all this, although I'm in a much better state than many of the artists, many of my colleagues. Every day I get this a small inkling of doubt whether will my children ever come back to my dance class? Will I ever be able to go and sit there and start taking my classes again? And what about all those costumes that I have collected over the years? They're all filling up my space, and I've not been able to wear even a single one, in the last 4 months. Whereas if it would have been normal, at least 2 or 3 performances a month somewhere, somewhere, either it's small, big, or whether it gives you a name or something, we would have done it. Or at least look forward to something new where we sit and choreograph something in the class. So the mood was not there for anything, Now, what is there for us to now sit and practice? Why should I even practice now? There is nothing to look forward to, no programs in the future. Those sort of emotions kept clouding me every day. But then I decided that once I knew that this is something more serious than just the lockdown, and I decided that how am I going to adapt myself to this current situation? I have to adapt myself. I cannot afford to just sit there and keep brooding. I have to move on. I have to
move forward,
and
right?
then, yes. And then I had these students who used to call me, and when are we going to see you, Akka? What is this? When are we going to come back to dance class? And then there were many who were looking forward to certain festivals that they wanted to be part of this year. Some festivals have this age limit and you have to apply within that age limit and all that. And if they miss it this year, then they cannot do it next year. So there were students like those, and there were many who were planning their arangetrams and all that. And now they would be going to 12th or they would be going to college, and that would not happen and all that. So these sort of calls from my students, I had to handle those. I had to reassure them.
Yeah.
And, and many of them were thinking about their fitness. What is going to happen to us if you're not going to dance at all? How long can we just sit, be in our rooms and keep dancing to tape music? How motivating is it, or how demotivating it is to dance to just recorded music, looking at the four walls, And and for an artist, it's the audience and the audience reaction and the appreciation and the instant gratification you get from that, the applause, the sound of applause after a jati, all that is what keeps us going. So all these multiple problems surrounding us, and then I thought, no, this is not going to work out. So on one side, I have these hundreds and hundreds of artists who are in much worse situation than me and who need my help, either financially or emotionally. And the other side, I have responsibility towards so many of my students who have been so loyal and so been like daughters to me all these years. How am I going to keep their spirits up? So immediately I jumped into the Zoom class, bandwagon, to say it.
Zoom school.
Technically challenged I was just before March, before the lockdown. But then after the lockdown, I had to learn everything. Like you say, necessity is the mother of invention. I had to figure it out. I made a few mistakes, but then I learned from my mistakes. And now without my online classes, I don't think I can pass through this phase at all in my life. And with the Abhay initiative and with the calls that keep coming every day, and once they request us, the next call will be, ma'am, when are you going to, will you be able to give us that? Then the next call will be, have you already given? And then if it has not still reached their bank account, then Miss ma'am, why the delay? So every question has to be answered with a lot of patience. With a lot of patience, you cannot afford to get irritated with the calls that keep coming, or you cannot afford to, miss the call and just ignore it and all that, because it is a matter of affecting them psychologically. And there are many who have told me that it feels so bad for us to even open our mouths and ask you for help. This is what the word that they use, it's a lot of self-respect that they have to give up and open their mouths and ask for this help. Especially men, Amma, Anna, in the maso vadaga kudukka mudiyalana kashtamma, and with large families, with 2-3 daughters to look after, it's impossible for them to survive. And there are many who have taken loans, housing loan, this loan, vehicle loans and all that. And all that is piling up for them. And many of them were targeting the trips abroad, the arrangement trips abroad, which used to be ones based on which they used to survive the rest of the year. 2-3 months of arrangement abroad, and then they could survive the rest of the year comfortably with that. And the whole thing was gone. So how do you manage to survive in this situation?
Absolutely.
Talking to them and telling them, reassuring them, no, we are there for you. Call us anytime you want. We will talk to you. We will help you. Please don't. And when we heard a few of them taking extreme steps, that was when it really broke our hearts.
Actually, I'm going to come back to that question at the end, ma'am. But before that, I want to ask you, I wanted to ask you about, like just the way you spoke about how Chitraka, in a sense, had, tackled used Abhay and like tackled the floods and like, at that point, this is actually, the pandemic is going to perhaps, many generations later, people are going to look back and say that Abhay did such phenomenal work during this pandemic,
absolutely,
right?
yeah.
Are there, apart from what you're already doing, ma'am, are there any other initiatives from a learning perspective that you would like to add? Like in terms of allowing dancers to stay anchored in terms of, learning new things. And what is your take on, do you think that dancers in this current context are at all in a mood to learn?
Yeah. So, see, there has been a lot of contrasting opinions about the lessons that are happening online, and also the performances that are happening online. You see social media is flooded with dancers dancing anywhere and everywhere, yes, doing something or the other. Why this urge for dancers to make themselves seen? Why is this? I mean, I won't say musicians are not far behind. They are also there. Musicians and, I mean, all artists, I would say. Yeah, all artists, I would say. So this is this innate urge in the artist to stay connected with their arts. And all these dancers, so to say, are all very well educated, or they have a very lucrative job in IT or some other, field, and still they want to hang on to the arts. Still they don't want to give up on the arts, because still they say it is this that keeps them going. So I was ready to adapt and adjust, and so were many of my committee members. And of course, we had to take in everybody's opinion on everything, because we had to have a majority before we take any step. So with multiple meetings that happened online and other things, we also thought that somehow, we had, usually in summer, we have a huge Abhivriddhi Shala planned, huge, with the who's who, and it used to be a big seller for us. Hundreds of dance enthusiasts used to attend these Abhivriddhi Shalas and learn, and it used to be a fantastic 1 week, 10 days of of dancers from so many parts of India and the world coming together. But unfortunately, we couldn't do it this year. So many of the those who had registered for these, started calling us and asking us, "Ma'am, why don't you do this online? We are all just sitting at home, and colleges hadn't started then, schools hadn't started then.
Yeah.
So why don't you do it online? We are okay to learn it online." And so that is when, it set the ball thinking. I set the ball rolling for Abhay, and I decided to host the first online Abhivriddhi Shala under my dance academy, Bharatanatyalaya, to raise funds for the cause of artists. So it was very well received. I did a session, and my colleague Nitya Kalyani did another session on Padams. And we had students from all over the world. In fact, we didn't think much of the timings that that will be suitable for the western part of the world. But still, there were students who got up at 5 a.m. and 4:30 a.m. to join the classes, because we had scheduled it for 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. in the evening. So it was almost 5 and 4:30 for many of the students. So it showed the interest, that enthusiasm they had. And many of them said, this is like God sent, because touring artists, many senior artists, many leading performers tour many of the cities and countries, but those small towns they don't visit. They mainly go to the main cities, on the coast, and then they don't go to the small towns in interior, in Midwest or somewhere. So those students were most benefited by this online Abhivriddhi Shala, and so that was one very encouraging thing that happened, and we could raise a lot of money, almost close to 2 lakhs of rupees through that, to support the artists. So again, it came from the artist and it went through the artist. So it was just channelized. It was just channelized by us.
I mean,
it gave a lot of satisfaction mentally and emotionally to many of us. So
I mean, it's a bit ironical and it's a bit funny that, the survey sort of said the artist topped the list of non-essential, jobs. It's very, very ironical because artists have been coming together to help other artists. And at
Yes.
this point, Roja ma'am, I'm going to ask Laksika from London to, she has a couple of Laksika, you may want to unmute yourself before you ask. Just she has a couple of questions on the idea of essentiality that she'd like to talk to you about. Laksika, over to you.
Thank you, Akalaka. Hi, ma'am, again. I'm so excited to be here to speak to an exponent like you and get a small insight into your thoughts on the questions I've had over lockdown as well. And a huge thank you to the ALAP team as well for letting us go beyond the comment section and to, have a real conversation in person. So, Roja ma'am, the question I wanted to ask was, as an aspiring dancer, beyond my love for the art form, I'm usually quite curious about a dancer's spiritual journey with the art form, and how that goes with the dancer's practice and so forth. And of course, us dancers, we feel our art is an essential part of our living, but how do you feel we can best convey this to an audience to help them understand how essential it is for art to be a part of our lives, our daily lives? I was explaining to even my mom, like, the churidar that we're even wearing, the art that comes in that. There's art in everything that we do. So how can we convey that to an audience in even a performance? And also, what do you think, what role do you think, I guess, that Abe can play in spreading this crucial message to audiences?
Yeah. So thank you, Lakshika, for that very pertinent question during these times. Why art? Why artists? I still remember that when the 9/11 happened way back, artists were the first one who got back to their profession, and because it was needed to calm the nerves and the minds of humanity as a whole. And what do you do now in the at the end of the day? What do you want to do is just sit back quietly and relax with some music, or watch one of your favorite artists on social media. Or so how can you not have art and artists in the current scheme of things? So, and I very strongly believe that a country is represented by its art and artists and its culture. Because you can say whatever you want about the exports and the industrial growth and this and that, whatever, but finally when it comes to representing the country in front of a foreign audience or a foreign tourist, it's the art that comes in front. It's the artists that are taken forward. So you cannot survive without art. Like I said at the beginning of my of the conversation, what is the earth without the art? It's just so it is so important. So as artists, I think it depends on how much you can sustain and persevere in situations like this. Never give up attitude is what is required very much in this phase. So why do you see the social media flooded with so many of the videos? You never saw this much earlier. But then why? Because people want to be seen, want to be heard, want to tell the world that they are there and they are still alive and kicking, and they want to be seen, make their art known to the world. So this is the only way arts can survive at this point of time, because we know for a fact for the next 1 year the theaters are going to be closed, the festivals are not going to happen, and anything that happens is going to be online and all that. So we have to adapt ourselves to the new normal, and I'm sure artists are the first ones to adapt to such a situation. So it's just a question of patience first, and you cannot expect miracles to happen in the next couple of months or something. We know that this is something that is going to take a long time to settle, but you mentally prepare yourself and don't think this is the end of the world. We have survived so many such things before, So just keep that positive outlook in life. That is most important. Shut out all the negativities, shut out anything that doesn't, come close to what you feel like. Just swipe over it or just jump over it and just keep doing. And what you do it with utmost conviction and belief in what you do. Don't get bogged down by somebody who says, oh, it's bad or it's this or that. You feel it's good, you feel you want to do it, and you feel it's good enough to be exhibited on social media, do it. Go ahead. Because that's the only way we can make ourselves seen now. What other ways? So it's thanks to social media that still the arts are surviving. And how many live performances are going on every evening, Take the example of my mother. She is now spoiled for choice. She doesn't know what to see. She has this, she has that. This one is going live, that one is going live. It's full time she's occupied with watching. The situation is better than what it was when it was happening live. She had restrictions of movement. Since she's old, she couldn't go to the sabha, sit in an auditorium. But now it's all available in her phone, in her lap. So she's having the most fantastic time of her life watching all these performances. And so keep up the positive attitude, persistence, and you can sustain this or anything else and come out of it with flying colors. That's what I feel you should do.
Thank you so much, man. It was such beautiful, positive words. Thank you so much. I'll pass over to Khushi for her question now. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay. All the best to you.
Namaskaram, ma'am.
Namaskaram.
Taking off from that question by Lakshika, ma'am, I had like to ask that art requires pace and endurance and patience, and artists require tremendous energy to sustain this. More so in the time like this. What is your message for a young dancer to help remain grounded in their art and continues to do whatever it takes to make it relevant?
Yes. So, like I said before, Khushi, adaptability to the current situation is the most important and the basis of survival now for any artist, whether she is an experienced one or whether she is a young dancer or musician or instrumentalist. So all you can do is within the four walls of your room or within the space that is available in your house. So how best can you survive in this situation? In fact, there are very few who can afford to have a space exclusively for their practices, and there are many who live with many family members, and not everyone is in sync with your interest in the arts. You might have an old grandparent who doesn't want to hear the noise, who wants some silence. You might have a youngster who's studying for some entrance exam and who doesn't want to be disturbed. So how best are you going to deal with the current situation is what you should plan on a daily basis, because you cannot afford to let go of your sustained practice in terms of having your stamina maintained, in terms of having your health being maintained throughout these times. So I have found my solace in my yoga classes. So all you need to do your yoga is that yoga mat, and that small space. And it's most of the time, it is very silent. So you're not disturbing anybody with your practices. So that I have been carrying on without fail, day in and day out. Sometimes I do it a couple of times. Sometimes I do elongated hours during the mornings. So that way I keep my fitness also in place. Although I have a space readily available for me, where I can go and practice and nobody's going to ask me why I'm doing it. But still, I have not got the mindset to go and do it. I feel guilty. I feel guilty when I do it, because I think of those calls which I get from other artists who say they don't know where the next meal is going to come from. They don't know whether they will be able to survive this for the next month because they have not been able to pay their rents for the houses. So this guilt feeling comes to me when I start getting up and dancing or practicing. But then I also, somehow tell myself that this is not going to be permanent. This is just a temporary phase. So let me keep in touch with my arts in some way or the other. So I just play the music and mentally dance, listen to it when it's quiet, when it's really late hours in the night. I just mentally listen to my music. And I take out all my books where I have recorded all my dances. I read over them, just so that I remember those items. I index them. I sort of arranged my library of books in these 4 months. And then I watch my old performance videos, and then I take note of points where I need to correct myself. You know, there are ever so many corrections in every performance that you can see and correct yourself for the next performance. So prepare yourself for the good times that are going to come. You know, this is not going to be permanent. I am sure that we are all going to come back with more force and more enthusiasm and more energy. So let us prepare ourselves mentally, physically for all the times to come, and not feel insecure. The feeling of insecurity should never come. Nobody is going to miss us if you don't dance for 3 or 4 months. Okay, but you keep the fire burning in you. Don't let it die down. Keep it burning in you. Keep doing something or the other that stays you connected with the art form. So, which will see you through this temporary phase.
Thank you, ma'am. This is very useful for all the artists.
Absolutely.
Now it's over to Nikita.
Okay.
Namaskar, ma'am.
Namaskaram.
Ma'am, I have a question that we all have heard growing up saying that there is a no way of success without struggle. So, do you have days where you didn't have motivation? And it's surely for you, it's not that easy because you are an own dancer and you have to handle the whole bunch of students of Abai. And what is your mantra and how do you motivate yourself daily?
It's true, you know, that I, at my stage in life as a performing artist, I've had it all. So I cannot complain, you know, that I have not had it all. But there are many aspiring students of mine who are, you know, who are still at a very early stage in the lives of in their lives as dancers, who are all facing this very insecure situation. So I have to constantly keep motivating them. And the one way I encourage them to keep connected with the art form is by coming for my online classes. Is I insist that they come, and we keep revising as if the program is going to be tomorrow or day after. You know, we keep practicing like madcaps in those classes. We revive all our old items, and I go over them again and again. And the other thing is, a few of them have had opportunities to perform online, and I have told them to go ahead and do it. At least it gives them a motivation to practice, because there is a performance, they practice and they come up with the performance and all that. And the other thing that I keep telling them is, every year I have been organizing festivals from my dance class to showcase these talents in my dance class. And this year I thought, if the situation is not going to improve, I will do it online. So I have told each and every student of mine to prepare a Margam, to prepare for a Margam exposition, where I will be featuring every one of them, and if possible with a live orchestra, because I want the artists to get the payment, the orchestra people to get the payment, because every time we prepare to dance to recorded music, we are denying payment to an artist, you know. It is a very selfish motive on our dancers to have recorded music all the time. So we cannot keep saying, oh, we spent lakhs of rupees on the recording, why should we pay them again? You know, it's at this point of time, it's not fair, I feel. So my ultimate aim at the end of the pandemic, if the, if everything opens up is, and still if we are not allowed to have, you know, a big gathering in a sabha or some place, to have a festival online for my students and promote each and every one of them, and make them work towards a marga. So this is the way in which I'm motivating them to keep it going.
Very well, ma'am. It's a very good answer, and I'll pass over to Laksika.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Nikita. Ma'am, I actually initially had a question about retaining the essence of an in-person performance, but if I'm honest, you've given so much energy to us today that I have no doubt that all in-person performances will also come back with a bang. So looking ahead, ma'am, for me personally, I feel classical art forms, the essentiality comes from the fact that they've been passed through so many generations and so many artists and ancestors before us. So if we were looking ahead to teach this to younger students, I often look at, my younger cousins who are now learning dance, and they often want quick results, which some other dance forms might easily give to them. But I think with Bharatanatyam, the essentiality of it lies in the patience of the dancer, understanding the beauty in our adavas, the depth of our stories, the nuances in our abhinaya. So how do you think we as dancers who hopefully will one day become a teacher to even one student, when we pass on this art form, how can we reach the upcoming generations with that essentiality?
Yes, very good question again. See, when we were learning and we were growing up in our dance classes, with our gurus, we could not even open our mouth and ask anything. It was such a situation. So it was blind acceptance of everything that was given to us, and it worked for the good. It was all good. It was for our own good. Even if we got a huge round of shelling from the gurus, when we go back and complain to our mothers, the mothers will just say, this is how it will be. The teacher will scold you like this. You have no two way about it. But now we are dealing with a generation of students who need to be handled very carefully, because they are all coming from nuclear families and very, very sensitive to anything that is, more than even a normal speaking level of voice. You just raise your voice a little bit and then it's gone. So how do you deal with such highly sensitive students now? That is the biggest challenge for any guru these days. And as far as personally I am concerned, although I sometimes start a class by saying, today girls, be careful, I'm going to be very strict in the class. I just say that, and then everybody starts laughing. I can never be strict. That is what they say. But I can get the job done out of them by coaxing them to do it. That is one thing that I have developed as a teacher. Because I feel that every student who walks into my dance class has this passion towards the art form. There are few who come because their mothers have pushed them into it. But there are many who come because they want to do it. And they will go to any lengths to do it, pursue it. So how do you deal with kids who are coming from this varied backgrounds? You need to have patience as a teacher. So you have to coax them to do it. In fact, even bribe them a little bit with something, you do this right, you will get that opportunity to perform there, and then you will be able to, get a lot of people will come and tell you it was so good, so nice. So you can see the instant change and during this pandemic, what I did with my younger lot was, I sent them the music for the items that they have learned. I told them, you practice it and you send me the videos, and then I will assess you based on that. So all of them practiced it well, because they were all alone, and they, in a class, what happens, they look at this girl, they look at that girl and try to copy and somehow do something. But when they are alone and they have to do it and present the whole thing to me, they have to work much harder. You won't believe it, they all did such a fantastic job of their practices. And kids who whose Natyarambam also was not in position, we're all doing it so perfectly. What was the motivation for them to do it so perfectly? Just that I'm going to be watching them separately, spending that time on them, and going to send them a message with all smileys and hearts and medals and cups and everything. So they were looking forward to it every week. So week after week, I gave them these exercises, which motivated them so much to practice on their own. And all of them made an effort to remember their items instead of looking at somebody and doing. And that was a good way I motivated them. So, although it was a lot of work on my part to watch 10, 15 videos of the same item being sent to me, but I owed it to those children, who had taken so much of pain to practice it and show it. So, and my personal message to everyone made so much of difference when they came back to the class the next time. They were enthused even more. So these sort of tactics, if you employ and coax them sort of, to do what you want and do what is right, I think you will be able to get them all into the fold. And slowly, tell them that instant gratification doesn't happen always. You have to be patient. You'll have to be very, careful in how you present yourself. And if you present yourself, it has to be presented well. So the teacher knows best when to come up with that. And slowly, if you coax them with these, I'm sure you will be able to get them all in your fold.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So beautifully put, the guru-Sishyan like relationship. Thank you. Thank you for all of your answers so far. I'm going to pass on to Nikita. Thank you.
Okay.
Just one thing before Nikita asks the question. Ma'am, I was just thinking about this word essentiality, and I just wanted to make a comment that I think this essentiality, it works on two levels. I feel like, first of all, the dancer needs to sort of be convinced that the art is essential to her, right?
Absolutely.
Her or him, and do whatever it takes to make it essential, firstly for herself or himself. And only then, I suppose, it's possible for it to become essentiality or essential to the larger context. And I think that needs to come firstly from within. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. You have to be absolutely convinced in your opinion or in your feeling that this is what you want to be and this is what you want to do. My WhatsApp status is, I'm proud to be a dancer. This is what I want to be known as. I have donned all roles in my life. I have done everything, but they were all duties that I had to do, that I had to accomplish. Correct. So those are all duties. But what I want myself to be known as is, I want to be known as a dancer. Yeah. So
that is the essentiality, ma'am. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you will go to any lengths to achieve it. You will go to any lengths to achieve it. So that is what everybody as an artist should cultivate. Yeah.
Right. Over to Nikita. Nikita? Yeah.
Ma'am, classical dance forms are free. This is the very assumption of many people or organizations where they refuse to pay for artists, or even if we say we are professional dancers, they look at us and say, oh, it's just your hobby. Why are you supposed to have that as profession? So how can we make change people's minds or organizations that artists should be paid well?
Yeah. So this is a huge battle that we've been fighting for ever so long. Payment for artists. This is been going on for years, and this is a struggle that we are facing even now. See, if you watch online platforms that are featuring artists, many of the artists are performing, but how many of them are able to get any return out of it? And at this point, we just want to perform and be seen. We are not thinking about the returns now. But the thing is, what many are absolutely worried or scared about is when the situation becomes normal, our art is going to be treated again this way, not being paid for their performances, not being paid for the hard work that they have put and all that. But the change has to come from each and every artist, and it has to be united and unified in our representation for this. So if there are 10 artists who say they won't perform if they're not paid, and there are 100 who are saying we are ready to perform even if you don't pay us anything, then we will not be able to go anywhere. This is the struggle, this is the battle that we have to fight in a united way. So at ABAI, we have made it a policy that every single artist who comes and performs will be paid. And every single dancer or student of dance who enters a competition that we conduct will also be paid, although it is a competition. We pay the competitor also. We have made that a point because that is a respect you give for the art that she has, so passionately pursued. So it has to be respected. So this is an initiative that we have started in a small way. We hope that this carries on, and we hope that we are able to represent this in front of the organizers, cultural organizers, government bodies, wherever, And another thing that I would personally say is, I have started my own initiative where I give opportunities for my students to perform. It is my own festival where I have invested the money in that, and I pay the orchestra myself from my funds. So this way, the dancer, the student, gets an opportunity to perform, and she does not have the burden of taking care of the orchestra members. And performing with live orchestra means you give a means of livelihood to the artist also, who are solely depend on dance performances for their survival. So this is another initiative. There, like me, there are many of my colleagues who are doing this in their own dance schools, creating festivals of their own and providing opportunities and paying the artists. So at Abhay also we have started that initiative. For every festival of ours, including the competitions, we pay the artists, and we are trying to instill this idea into every artist and tell them, insist that please don't dance without payment. If you're going to dance for a cause, it is different. It is very different. Like I have done a couple of shows online during this pandemic, and it was for a cause. And there was one show that I did for an organization in Kolkata, where the city had just experienced the cyclone, you know, and I asked this organizer, you have just recovered from a cyclone, do you still want to go ahead with the festival? She said, ma'am, we are so looking forward to this performance, which is going to divert our mind from the misery that we see around. So this is the sort of response I got from them, you know. So for such things, you can definitely do without taking any payment. But then when you know that the organization is someone who can afford to pay the artist, it is better you demand or request first, you know, not demand, first request. Please, you know, let us have some payment. You just try to go in that way and not, you know, start fighting at the first moment and then spoil the relationship. This is my advice.
Yes, ma'am. Hope people get to know that artists should pay. So I pass over to.
Yes, my next question is how do we as youngsters convince our immediate family and society around us that the art is essential? It provides us a great strength and a sense of anchoring.
That is a very big challenge, Kushi. You know, you should have a supportive family. Otherwise, it is very difficult for you to pursue, because the first question, you know, anybody in the family is asks you, how long are you going to be spending on your art? When is it going to give you the return? And the returns from the art is not going to happen in 10 years or 20 years or 30 years. It takes a long time, and you have to sustain. And how do you get your returns in a profession in the arts is by teaching. As of now, it's only by when you start teaching that you get something in return. But when do you become a teacher? You cannot just start learning and then become a teacher the next day. You have to equip yourself first. And that process is going to take a long time, at least 10, 20 years of hard and sustained learning only will put you at a level where you can manage to teach beginners. So it all needs a lot of time. So support from the family is at most necessary, and it has to be there, without which you cannot survive. But there are others. At the same time, I can tell you that there are other dancers who are so passionate about the art, but you have an alternate profession, you know, a very lucrative profession, either in chartered accountancy or as a doctor or as an IT professional, and they manage their time so beautifully. You know, they find time for everything. So you have a lucrative profession on one side, and you also have your dancing on the other side. But what I would say is, if there is somebody who's putting in hours and hours of her every day into the training in the art form, and there's someone who is just able to get 4 or 5 hours in the evening, there will definitely be a difference in standard. So it is a very dicey game that you have to play, and few of us have been lucky that we could survive because of family support. You know, otherwise it is very tough. So teaching is one very lucrative profession that you can try out, and also pursue your education to a level where you can have an alternate profession and at the same time continue with your passion in the arts. So when you reach a certain stage in the arts where you can do away with the alternate profession, you just keep the job off and you concentrate fully on your arts. But all this will take time.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It's really helpful. Now over to Akhila Aka.
Yeah. At this point, ma'am, I'd like for you to just speak about your Abhay's latest initiative, which is to handle the emotional well-being of artists. More importantly, if you can share with us what are some of the kind of stories, because I feel like sometimes we're all so in our own worlds that listening to some of these stories will also help us build empathy and also keep recognizing that we are way better than
Yeah.
most people are, and just offer prayers of gratitude, so to speak. So I just like for you to just share some of those stories with us.
Absolutely. I think we have to thank from the bottom of our hearts, Dr. Srinidhi Chidambaram and Dr. Sabiha Sultana of Apollo Hospitals. It was Dr. Srinidhi who just messaged me one fine morning asking me about what I thought about this, talking to artists about the current situation and their mental state and all. This was soon after the suicide of that actor, the young actor in Mumbai, And before that, we had also had instances where Nadaswaram artists had committed suicide. One of them had even doused himself with kerosene and lit himself. And there was one young wife of a violinist who committed suicide, not because of economic reasons. There was some marital discord also, but all this, why does all this start? Why does a marital discord start at this point? Because the violinist is not able to get the income that he has to bring into the family. So there is not enough enough money to get their daily needs of groceries and vegetables. So this fight starts from there, and then it builds up, and then it reaches a stage where the young girl had to take this extreme step. So when Srinidhi called me and it started, we started thinking about it. We thought it is the right time for us to also tackle this very important aspect of emotional well-being of artists. Because every day I was talking to several artists who were seeking financial help to me.
Correct.
But nobody spoke about this particular aspect. What was the state of mind that they were in when they had to pick up the phone and call me, There were people who told me, Amma, நான் வந்து ரொம்ப நாள் யோசிச்சேன், உங்களை கூப்பிடணுமா வேண்டாமா, எப்படி கூப்பிடுறது, நீங்க என்ன நினைச்சுப்பீங்க, whether I want to call you or not. What will you think of me if I ask you for something?
Correct.
Will you keep this absolutely confidential, whatever I'm asking you? Things like that, I was listening to such conversations. And so this also got me thinking. So when I discussed with my core committee members and what Srinidhi was planning, we all just jumped at this. We said, of course we have to do it. So that is how this Jyotir Gamaya towards emotional well-being of artists, that initiative was launched. And I won't say we had a tremendous response to it, because people still had this hesitation to talk about what they were going through. There was this very leading mridangist for dance who was telling us, Amma, enna pandradhunu theriyalama. I mean, I was planning so much based on the arangetrams and the performances that I had already been booked for. With a large family, I really don't know how to deal with the whole thing, How do I, padutha thooka varamatengirudhu, I'm not able to sleep at nights, thinking about all this. What will I do? Because in June, the schools will reopen. I have to pay the fees for the children. And then my mother's medical expenses. And there were some who had gone through some, the parents had gone through some medical condition. They had to be operated upon. And that was a huge loan that they had taken for that. And that interest is pending. And there were many who had health issues, who had had angioplasty done and everything, and they are not able to meet the expenses. And what about these lighting personnel, who were solely every day they had performances, in Bharati Vidya Bhavan, if you see, morning and evening.
Absolutely.
And the lighting was the most essential part of that. and makeup people and the costumers. You know, every other performance we had a new costume done. If it was a group, we had to do a new costume. If we had worn it for 2-3 performances, we don't want to wear it again. We want to get a new one. You know, so costume tailors, and a main tailor had 10 or 15 other tailors in his shop. How is he going to feed all of them? So all this, you know, these emotional instability that artists were going through, we thought we should address this this very, very vital issue of artists. And so we launched it, and almost a month has passed, and we had given free counseling for anyone. Many of them mistook it for financial assistance, but then the doctor had to counsel them and say that finance is one part, but you staying positive and you know, trying to look ahead, the future is that everything is not gone and you still have a lot to look forward to in life is another part of it. And how do you only if the main earning breadwinner of the family is grounded and stable, will he able to take the other family members along with him? No?
Along, yeah.
If the main person himself is down, then how is he going to take care of the rest of the family? So that was the most important aspect of this thing that we had to deal with. And many male dancers, you know, who were surviving on this, were going through a lot of issues. You know, they had come from Kerala and this Andhra and Bangalore and settled in Chennai because it was a cultural capital, and everybody had some classes in some school somewhere, and they were dancing freelance in some groups, and they used to get payment from that. Now everything had come to a standstill. So all these male dancers, where will they go for surviving, you know? So those sort of dancers had to be counseled. We had to, you know, talk to them and help them, tell them that yes, we know that you have lost your jobs, but we will help you to survive the next 3 months, and then I'm sure the situation will be all right. From Kerala, you know, I have got applications from almost 225 artists for help. 225 artists in Kerala, in remote villages, in remote towns, who are all surviving on this art form. Musicians and dancers, you know. So that's how many of us are there. And so that is how this initiative of Jyotir Jamaya was born. And
Ma'am, sorry, go ahead.
We have made a slight inroads into this very important aspect of emotional well-being, but still a lot is there to be done. A lot, we have to do a lot, and we hope to continue this, keep doing this in future also.
Yeah, I mean, I keep coming back to the word essential, but that's also because I want to kind of reinforce, you talked about the lighting people, and you talked about costumers, and these are in some way essential to the world of the artist, right? But in some way, like there's just no way that you can have a live performance without a makeup artist. The lighting and the costume are crucial. You just cannot compromise on those. But ma'am, in the new normal, now we're dancing online. People are starting their own channels, dancing on their own channels. So those things are becoming, in some sense, redundant, right? We're not looking for a lighting person. We are okay to dance in our, regular clothes, maybe just a nice looking sari, perhaps. We're just using our phone, so camera, we're photographing ourselves. Everything has shifted. Do you think that it's perhaps possible that what was essential before and after a pandemic like this, when we go through a sense of, everybody's also talking about minimalism, everybody's talking about paring down. Do you think when we return to the live performance, we will continue to think of them as essential, or do you think we will sort of figure out ways of either doing it on our own or trying to cut down on what are very essential to a live performance itself? This is just a sudden question that struck me. So
yeah, absolutely. See, whatever said and done, these online performances can in no way replace a live performance.
Absolutely.
That's what I feel. We are just trying to adjust with whatever is available, the available resources at this point of time. But if you think of those huge productions that we were seeing, we were watching, and we were enjoying, and all that, that is never going to happen online. It has to happen on a live stage. And so the role of a lighting technician and a audio person or a costumer or a makeup artist cannot be replaced at all when we go back to the auditoriums. So that is a very necessary, essential part of the art
Essential,
form.
yeah.
It is essential. Even now, we have in Abhay 2-3 artists who are willing to sponsor online festivals for us. You know,
Right.
they are willing to sponsor in the sense that they are willing to take the expenses of the orchestra and the dancer, and they want us to do it in a very professional atmosphere, not in your homes, but in an auditorium when the lockdown sort of eases out a little.
Yeah.
Do a proper online festival and encourage upcoming and senior artists to perform with the best of lighting and audio facilities. So in that case, we are going to again look for these technical people to come into the fold. So we are going to start employing them again, and we will be also paying them for that, you know. So they cannot be done away with at all. If online festivals are going to be the order of the day for the next 6 months or 1 year, if we do it, let's do it properly, you know. Let's not have a makeshift arrangement and do it. Let's do it in a proper way. So when we started as an organization in the stature of Abhay, we want to do it in a very professional way. So I'm thinking that, or rather, we are thinking that we should do it, you know, well, and we are definitely going to launch this in a very professional and proper way in the future. So these essentials will be there definitely as essentials.
That's great. That's great, because, you know, I think it's in our attempt to recalibrate and sort of shift, I think it's important for artists also to recognize all the essentials that were crucial to their to the live performance, so to speak, and not ever have to like learn makeup and try to do it on their own. You know, there's people, you know, financially everybody is hit. So, but then one needs to recognize that the ecosystem has to survive.
Absolutely.
Right. And yeah, and you can't just just for your own survival, you cannot forget the ecosystem. Ma'am, I want to firstly thank you for so generously sharing so many fantastic ideas with us. And I think we took a little more than what I'd originally told you. We took about 75 minutes. Thank you so much. I'd also like to personally thank Laksika, Nikita, Kushi, and my colleague Subiksha. Subiksha, can I ask you to quickly just sum up for us everything that we, some crucial takeaways perhaps?
Yeah, sure. So firstly, this is something that I'd like to add with the surrounding the theme of essentiality. So if one looks and reads up on the origin of art itself in the Indian perspective, that is the Natyotpatti, it is in a very crucial and very sad state of affairs that Natya was created by itself to serve humankind and to motivate, to communicate. And even from the anthropological study side, art was the first mode of communication. And it's only with development that we have done away with art as a way of communicating and expressing. So, what I personally was able to take from this wonderful conversation that we've had is that number one, art is definitely essential because art comes from human beings, and unless there are no human beings, I think art can just not be kept aside without purpose. And a few words that I'd like to state from what Roja ma'am said, because these are things that we tend to forget and disassociate with art. We talk about patience, endurance, adaptability, all in a very technical sense now. Science is teaching us, but art has always been teaching us from the very beginning. Like how ma'am said, necessity is the mother of invention. That's how and now with arts, that's what we're doing. We're inventing, we think of different ways of what we can say through the art. So a lot of modern ideas that we associate with science is something that art has always taught us in different ways, not just dance and music, but any art form. So I think that reinstated the importance of art in all of our lives. And one last huge lesson that we learned from a person with about 4.5 decades of experience as a performer and teaching in the world of arts and dance is to be sensitive. You sensitize with other people. It's not just your art or your performance. You have to be generous to share it, share another person's happiness and sorrows. So I think a lot of life lessons are also learned through art. So I think this is what my biggest takeaway was from this conversation. And thank you again, ma'am. Thank you so much for sharing all of your thoughts with us. And like you said, a lot of us tend to keep our thoughts very personal, right? We want to copyright our ideas, our thoughts, our words, but there's always joy in sharing it. And I mean, the three people like three young dancers who we were able to talk with today, different perspectives. Everyone has different challenges. And then you realize, oh, yeah, I was also thinking of that. My question is answered. So that kind of discussion was also wonderful. Thank you all for being with us today. And this was a beautiful way to start off this wonderful series of dance in the now. Thank you all so much. We've had a lot of people who stayed up past their bedtimes, I believe. So thank you so much. If we ate up
Yeah,
in
I think that just reinforces the essentiality of art and how much people want to participate in reinforcing to themselves the essentiality of art. So thank you so much, everybody, and have a good night, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Have a great afternoon, evening, night, whatever, whichever part of the world you're logged in from. Thank you, Roja ma'am, for so generously sharing your insights with us, and to the Alap team and to the young girls who joined us. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.